Greetings, everybody. Welcome to VIDS on the Fly, number 9. I'm your host, Krusty Canuck. I would have done a proper podcast this evening, but the time constraints, it's about 5:15, and I've had a long effing day. So in news today, Miss Tamara Lich and Mr. Chris Barber found guilty. Now, I haven't seen the recent news on what's going to happen to them as their sentencing or whatever punishment the Crown sees fit to give them. But once I heard that, a part of me was getting angry, getting pissed, getting mad. Because here's some individuals that took the initiative to stand up against the government and say, hey, can we talk? We've had enough of this garbage. Can we get something done about this issue with the lockdowns? And for those of you who don't know who they were, they basically organized the convoy. Ms. Litch has a great background in logistics, in movement, all that good stuff. And Mr. Chris Barber is one hell of a truck driver. Now, I haven't read all their bios, but I've actually had a nice conversation with Tamara Litch there about a year ago, when I was a guest on Northern Perspectives, little symposium they had. They had like a panel of people with them. I guess I was one of their first guests when they did their podcast. And I was invited along, and we talked about freedom, we talked about spirituality, we talked about what it means to be a Canadian, and how much freedom I think that we deserve in this country. Now, we all know what the lockdowns did. We all know how people reacted. We all know how people tend to still feel about government overreach. And you gotta admit, ladies and gentlemen, there was quite a bit of fucking government overreach. Oh, by the way, I'm gonna swear through this, so discretion advised. But when you look at the way we fight for freedom in this country, it's been polite. It has been. You know, there's a couple of parts of our history where we had the Upper Canada Rebellion in the 1830s, and then we had the Red River Rebellion in the 1880s. And then, of course, there have been some riots throughout the early 20th century, some issues with labor, however, but we never had any kind of humongous civil unrest throughout the 20th century, with the exception of the FLQ crisis that happened in 1970, but that's a different chapter in history altogether. Now, when I look back at the convoy, I look at the fact of how many lines were drawn in the name of personal safety. And I also look at who took sides here, who took sides there, who was going to get the jibby jab, who wasn't going to get the jibby jab. And it got to the point where a lot of people just didn't care. They want to get back to work and back with their lives. And the people at this convoy and all participants and supporters did a wonderful job. It was peaceful. There was no death. There was no accidents. There was no damage to property. You know, and there were people out there that begged to differ because, oh my God, you held the city of Ottawa hostage. Well, no. People could come and go through Ottawa freely. You know, there might have been some traffic delays. I know for a fact that the emergency lanes were open all up and down Wellington Street. And the police organized that with the truckers who were protesting. But from what I heard from Rebel News and from Fringe, Canadian Fringe or Unacceptable Fringe out of Calgary, the verdict was not treated with any kid gloves. It was treated and given out based on words like hold the line. Now, I don't know about you, but when I was a teenager, I got into some trouble with some police officers for mischief. But I never went to trial or any kind of court case. I was just told to go home. Well, don't make us tell your mother, they would say. And at the time, I don't think my mother would have given a shit. But to make a long story short, you know, I was threatened to be charged with mischief, which at that time I think was a $50 fine, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. But when you look at the emphasis that the government has put on that trial, and yet the lack of emphasis and the lack of respect they put on murder trials, rape trials, embezzlement trials, how many people have been caught and released in every major city in this country. How many people have been caught and charged with heinous crimes? Break and enter, assault with a weapon, firing a weapon, and all those weapons were illegal, by the way. They weren't a registered firearm. They were all illegal. And you hear about these guys getting arrested, being locked up for a day, and then released. All because there's no room in the system, or because there's not enough adequate court space to try and convict these individuals. And yet, ironically enough, there's all this court space to try and convict Tamara Leach and Mr. Chris Barber and others. Ironic, isn't it? Now, as far as I know, the Crown has spent 10 million Canadian tax dollars, that's right, 10 million Canadian tax dollars on this trial to prosecute those individuals. Yet they can't seem to have the funds or the space to prosecute and actually try die-hard criminals or career criminals. Funny, eh? So this system we live in is obviously a two-tier justice system, right? And it's getting pathetic. Now, we got an election coming up at the end of the month. So we've got to think long and hard about who we're going to put into our offices to represent our interests. And based on what I told you, and based what's out there in the independent media and probably some mainstream media when I get home, that these individuals that are calling the shots to protect us from heinous criminals, to make the legislation go through and work, they don't give a shit. They don't. And there's no reason why anybody should believe in the liberal brand anymore. Now, I'll be curious to see what Pierre Poilievre has to say about this, if he does say anything. Jagmeet Singh, I don't give a shit. He's gotten some trouble already with some supporter of his being on OnlyFans porn star or something. So you can see that the NDP is desperate, right? But it makes you reflect, and it makes you think what it really means to be a Canadian. Again, only in Canada can you wait for knee surgery, but you can get a bag of goodies at any of your local dispensary in the name of safe supply. Only in Canada, right? You can join the military and have tampons provided for you when you go take a leak in the men's washroom. Only in Canada, where you can pay so much tax and there's nothing to show for it. Only in Canada, if you break the law, depending on what kind of demographic you're with, you might be released within the first day of your arrest, right? Only in Canada, you can have your car stolen and they have trouble tracking it, but, they will tell you if you owe them an extra $20 or not when the CRA calls, right? Only in Canada can you find a two-tier justice system where police officers would tell you that what you own is illegal, but they'll hand coffee to protesters that want to annihilate another group of people, right? Only in Canada where can you get ahead by ripping people off and claiming victimhood, while the honest worker and the honest taxpayer and the honest citizen has to shut up, or they'll be deemed as a racist or deemed as a xenophobe or as a misogynist or what have you. Only in Canada to reward the stupid and reward the idiocy, and yet shun people who have come up with better ideas, right? I'm not going to go on about Canada over and over again, but I think you all see what I mean. We see the shift in mentality. We see the shift when it comes to liking certain types of music, the shift when it comes to art, the shift when it comes to our policies, and the shift when it comes to divvying out punishments. I don't believe that anybody in that convoy deserved to be punished. I don't believe anybody should have been treated the way they were. And any one of you Canadians watching this, and you may be cringing over this, you're more than welcome to engage me in a political debate. You name the time and place, and I'll let you have one. See, when I was a soldier, you believed in standing up for your country. You take an affirmation to the Queen and to your nation. Now the Queen is no more, it's now the King. Okay? But my affirmation is no longer with any queen or any king. It is with Canada and all the people therein. Doesn't matter what size they are, how they identify, who they sleep with, who they love, or what they eat. I don't care. That's my affirmation to Canada, and that's my oath I will carry to my grave. And when I see the behavior that has been going on, especially the past little month with this election and all these divisions that are actually incorporated and encouraged by the left, okay? I am wondering what exactly is going to happen if somebody in the left goes to jail or gets caught doing something really, really stupid. Are they going to cry victim? Is the system going to work for them because they go in line with the governing body? Or are we actually going to have some justices that actually have some balls? Now, if there's any justices watching this right now, or any senior lawyers that are about to become a justice, pay attention. You represent a hell of a lot more than your paycheck. Remember that. Because you're appointed and you're entrusted to be fair and just. You're not appointed and entrusted to look after a certain party member or to look after a certain group. Justice is for everybody. Equality under the law. That works in the parliamentary system as well as it works in our friend system down south. But I'm not seeing too much equality, especially when the verdict was handed guilty. Right? For mischief. Think about that. You know, all this big hype of putting them in court. Because Miss Leach served, I think, 50 days in jail. Not to mention 2 weeks of those days. 2 weeks of that time. She was in solitary. What I understand of solitary, you're only put there if you're a lunatic or you're extremely violent or you've done something really stupid while in custody. So, I don't buy it. So this next election, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at people that are going to look after justice properly. Preferably attorneys and people that actually have a background in law, not just hearsayers, or people have certain feelings they want to get out in the world. We got to have people that are going to call the shots properly. And for the mainstream media, this is one thing I'm going to say to you. Fuck you. You keep proving you're biased all the time. And we're catching on to it. Right? We were warned about this crap back in the 90s. How to look for a bias, how to see a bias. And it's there every day. Doesn't matter if it's CTV, Global, CBC, CBS, NBC, ABC, CNN, CNBC. We're seeing it. So, enough of the bullshit. And think about this election, ladies and gentlemen. Think about where it's going to take us. Think about how it's going to treat us. Right? How are our lives going to improve if we still have a carny government? I bet you there's some boomers out there who just love it. Oh, he's just going to be a great guy. You're only asking for Justin 2.0. Right? How's Pierre going to handle it? Is he going to be tough on criminals? Let's hope. Right? Everybody else, they don't matter. Because the Green Scheme wants to take away more money and tell us we don't have private property. And Elizabeth May wants another drinky poo to calm her nerves. And LeBlanc, I don't really give a shit about LeBlanc. Yves Blanchet is a smart fella. He's a good speaker. But he worries too much about the LeBlanc instead of Le Quebec. You know what I mean? And Bernier, I don't give a shit about Bernier. So let's think about the liberal brand, which is close to Red China. And let's think about the blue brand. That's pretty much close to Canada. Something to think about, ladies and gentlemen. If you like it, hear you see, please like, subscribe. Share this all over your social media platforms. Do not be shy. There'll be links in the description for you to donate if you want to donate. And what I'll do is I'll try to get a podcast up and running, hopefully tomorrow night after my shift. Like I said, I've had a long day today. It's about -4 here. We've had some sunshine. Had a bit of a snow squall. I was a little concerned there. I had to stop feeding for a second because I couldn't see where the fuck I was going. But, you know, it's clearing up now. It's nice and sunny, you can tell. But I'm just driving home. Going to have supper with my wife. And then hopefully see what the rest of the verdict is in the convoy trial. Right? But like I say, ladies and gentlemen, if you like to hear and see, click like, subscribe, share this all over your social media platforms. Don't be shy. And just try to keep a level head, regardless of how you feel about this. I'm livid, but I'm not going to go home and smash things and have a good cry. I'm just, okay, keep it up here and just remember it, like we all should. Right? And so should you. You should remember it too. Remember how the justice system works here. Because you've seen all the riots and shit that happened this past year in the name of Israel and Palestine and Gaza. And you can see the contrast to how justice was served there. Not too much of it. But then 2 adults organize a convoy to ask the government something and protest peacefully. No burning of anything, no destruction of property, no shots were fired at schools. Just people being people. So you see the contrast, right? Something to think about, folks. Anyhow, I'm in Krusty Canuck on this 4th of April. And this has been VIDS and the Fly. And I will probably see you tomorrow night, folks. So do what you can, help each other out. Be good to each other, the best of your ability. Stay calm, cool, and collected. And above all else, just remember, humanity and merit wins the day. Take care, and I'll see you later. Bye for now.